Happy New Year. I didn't get to see y'all last week. This is our first service of 2012, and I'm expecting God to do some amazing things in your life and in the church this year. I've got some great expectation and just some ridiculous, stupid faith to believe God to do something amazing. You know, it's either that or just ho-hum, think that this year will be the same, and I refuse to be that way. I just have faith that God can do anything. You know, and it's as simple as that, and it's not about me, it's not about any human effort, but it's about how great our God is. It's about the fact that we serve the risen Savior, and that He is our friend, that He has good plans for us, and He has good plans for you. And so in your own life, just believe that this year doesn't have to be a repeat of years past, that this year some amazing things can happen in your life. Maybe for some of you that's in your family, in your career, maybe the industry that you're in has had some ups and downs recently. Well, you know what? I believe that this year things can turn around. In fact, this year some things can change. And we're talking about change during this series. We're kicking off the series, Change Before You Have To. And here's the thing is that people fight change. People don't like change. In fact, if you're like most people, maybe, who in here has a Facebook? Who in here, see, about 90% of y'all in here have Facebook, and then the other 10% of you probably just didn't want to raise your hand, but you're like, I refuse to admit it. I know some of y'all have canceled your Facebook because you're like, stupid Facebook, and you're like mad because everybody's life looks perfect on Facebook, and you're like, my life stinks compared to their status, and so you're like, forget it. Well, you know, I get all that, but with Facebook, who's switched over to Timeline? Oh, see that? See that? Out of like the 90% of y'all that were on Facebook, there's only like a handful of you that have switched over to Timeline. And some of y'all are like looking at each other saying, what is he talking about? What's Timeline? Okay, well the thing is we don't like change. And just something as simple as Facebook, you fight change. You freak out when it changes. It's free, okay? Nobody's forcing you to even be on there, and you're like, I want it the way it was. I'm going to delete my account. You know, and we fight change. But think about this. Think about this. What if change could be good? What if your life actually changed and it made things better? What if in your marriage or your relationships, in the relationship that you have with your children, what about on your job? What if something changed and it was actually better? Because here's the thing, I bet there's some areas in your life that you really wished would be better. You really wish something in your life would improve from where it is. And I don't know for you what that is. I would imagine a lot of us, you look at your bank account, you try and balance your checkbook, and you're like, why is there more month left? Because I'm out of money, and you're like, that needs to change. And the thing is there are areas in your life that if you experienced change, it could actually be a good thing. Here's the thing, is change is scary. Change is unknown. Change causes some fear of what might happen, and oftentimes, rather than facing that change head on, a lot of times what you do, a lot of times what I do, is we would rather stay with what we know, even if we don't like it. Because that is much more safe than changing and experiencing the unknown. But I want to challenge us during this series that change can be good. And some of y'all, you faced some change last year. There were some maybe painful moments. Maybe some of y'all, even right now, maybe right now you're even facing some changes that are fresh, that are still painful. It's still raw. You've got some raw emotions about what you're going through. And I just want to challenge you to work through this, move through this change. Because I believe that if you're sensitive to God, if you allow Him to work in your life through this change, that on the other side of the change, you can be better. Whatever you're facing, whatever you're going through, the change could make your life better. It could be good for you. So listen to what it says in Isaiah 43, verse 19. Isaiah 43, verse 19 says, "For I am about to do something new." Say new. "See, I have already begun. Do you not see it? I will make a pathway through the wilderness. That's a good thing. Where there's this jungle craziness of life, God's saying, what was chaos, I can make a pathway. And then it goes on to say, I will create rivers in the dry wasteland. That's some good change. But here's the thing, is you could never experience something that is better if you stay the same. And God says, I am about to do something new. When was the last time you did something new? See, some of y'all, you've already talked about where to go to lunch after service. And it's the same place you went to lunch like 3 weeks ago, isn't it? And you already know you're going to get the number 4, and it's on the left side of the menu about halfway down. And you're going to get the cheese enchiladas again. Or you're going to go with the number 9, and you're going to get fajitas. And you already know, when was the last time you did something new? When was the last time you actually went and shopped at a store and bought some clothes that you wouldn't normally wear? You go in your closet and you've got polo, long sleeve shirt, long sleeve button up, long sleeve button up. When was the last time you just got something completely different? You know, I wore this shirt because Angela went shopping for me a couple weeks ago, and she bought me this shirt. And like any good husband, when she pulls out the shirt, I'm like, oh, thank you. I really like it. You know, the thing is if I went to the store, I would have never bought this shirt for me. And I look good, okay? And so here's the thing, is that I would have never bought me this shirt. The same thing, I'm wearing these jeans, right? These are skinny jeans, all right? Now, you're looking at the ankles, aren't you? I see you on the back row checking out the ankles, and I know that they should be tighter at the ankles, and they're not. And I don't know if it's my ankle's fault or if it's the jeans' fault, okay? But they say skinny on the label. And they look like Slim Straight. And I know that. I understand that. But here's the thing, is if I were at the store, I would have never bought skinny jeans for myself. It wasn't even on my radar to do something like that. You know, maybe you've seen some of the extreme makeover type stuff, not the home edition. I mean, that's all cool and everything. But, you know, where somebody is stuck with their hair a certain way, they're jacked up, nasty makeup a certain way, and like they're wearing burqas or something. They're like all, you know, messed up. And the stylists, they come, they say, you know what, we're going to take about 8 inches off your hair. And we're going to color it. And we're going to give you some bangs, and we're going to layer it, and we're going to... all the other stuff ladies do, right? And so the thing is the person fights it. And they'll try on a skirt or they'll try on a blouse, and it's like, they actually look pretty good. That's like actually much better. And the person like starts crying. It's like, I can't wear this. I can't, look at my legs. And they're freaking out. And the thing is for whatever reason, we see ourselves a certain way, and it is so hard for us to change in here, in our mind, to see ourselves different. But you and I have the potential to improve. You and I have the potential to be better. And during this series, I hope that it challenges all of us to see some possibilities that right now aren't even on your radar. I believe that God has something for your life that is actually better than what you've ever experienced before. But if you're so afraid, if you're so cautious, if you are controlled by fear to say, I'm not going to let go of what I know, then you're never going to experience what God has for you. So let's talk a little bit about that today. There's a quote, I'm not sure where it exactly came from, but the quote is, if you don't like the word change, how does the word irrelevant sound? If you don't like the word change, how's the word irrelevant sound? My mom used to say, a bend in the road isn't the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn. And for some of y'all, life is this windy road, and you need to be flexible, and you need to be able to make the turns. You need to be able to change. So that's what we're going to talk about during this series. And the only way to improve is through change. There's another quote that I like. If you're taking notes, you can write this down. To have growth, you must have change. To have significant growth, you must have significant change. Think about that. To have significant growth, to have significant improvement in your life, there's going to have to be significant change. And for some of you, you've thought of an area of your life, maybe for weeks, maybe for months, maybe for decades now, that you've said, I want this to be different. I want something different in my life. Then you're going to have to go through some change. to experience something different. You know, the whole point of the gospel, the whole point of the good message of Jesus Christ is about causing change. Listen to what it says in 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 18. It says, so all of us who have had that veil removed, talking about once I was blind but now I can see, that veil removed, this is what happened for us that have had that happen. We can see and reflect the glory of the Lord. And the Lord, who is the Spirit, makes us more and more, say more and more like Him as we are changed into His glorious image. Change is the message of Jesus Christ. That you don't have to remain the way you were. That your life can change. Who you are can change. Change for the better. Change to represent God even more. That your life, on a continual basis, more and more, you keep changing and begin to look and treat people and express love more and more like God. It's a message of change. So if you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. It is best to change before you have to. It is best to change before you have to. Because this is what I've learned, and I'm the ripe old age of like 32, who I know, but this is what I know, is that through life, things change. Each and every single one of us in here have experienced something in life that forced you to change. Some of you students, maybe it was your parents that said, this isn't happening, whatever you've made up your mind, the decision you made, that's not going to fly. And you were forced to change because of them. Some of you at work, you didn't want to do that project. You didn't want to go to that city. You didn't want to, accept that task. But because your boss said it's either that or you're on the street, and you did it because you were forced to change. You know, I believe that even things happen in our lives that we hate, that we don't like, that we wish we could avoid, because we're forced to change, and instead of us seeing it beforehand, instead of us being prepared for it and being ready for it and deciding to change before we had to, we're forced to. For some people, that's with their health, where they have a heart attack, and then they choose, well, you know what, maybe I really should change my diet. So some people, their house is being repoed, they're about to have to file for foreclosure or for bankruptcy, and then they decide, you know what, maybe I should start a budget. Maybe I should change the way that I'm handling my finances. Maybe I should look at my revenue compared to my expenses and make some changes. In life, oftentimes something comes up and it forces us to change. What if you stayed in the driver's seat? What if you chose to change before you had to? Rather than some external outside force causing it, what if you were ahead of the curve? What if you were ready? And you chose to change because you know God has been dealing with you about something. You know, I bet if I took a poll in here and had all of you write down 3 things that right now you could change about your life, you could do it. If I said, write down 3 things that would make your life better. If you were more disciplined, if you did something, write down 3 things, I bet you could do it. Why don't you decide to change before you have to? If you know it would improve your life, why don't you start doing it right now? So about 4 months ago, I decided to change before I had to, and I want to include you in this process, so go ahead and take a look at this. Hey Ovation Church, Happy New Year. I am coming to you from the past though, so it's really strange for me to say Happy New Year. Today is August 27th and I am about to get my behind kicked because what I've decided is that I want to change. In fact, I want to change before I have to, and so I need to get in shape. There's no medical reason for this, but I know I would be better for doing it, and so today I am meeting with William Iron Man Pruitt.
Hey Ovation Church, we're going to help Jesse lose about 5 of these. This is 5 pounds of fat, and we're gonna help Jesse lose.
That's disgusting.
Make sure your foot is on those points, those 2 circles, okay?
If it says I'm fat, it's probably because I'm wearing this microphone.
And you have a lot of clothes on.
Yes, right? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you are, it's 198. And you need to be your leanest. You need to be around 144 for your height. So what we did at Ovation Church is we just put him on the 10-point BMI scale, which measures hydration level, and basically through bioimpedance, it takes his whole body, upper body, lower body, and divides up the weight. And of course, Jesse hasn't eaten breakfast this morning, and that's important for this test. So now he's going to pig out at Pancake House. No, I'm just joking. No more of that.
Extra syrup.
No more of that. So next, we're going to continue on with the fitness testing.
Is it normal to feel like passing out?
Not the 50 yet. Stuff's over. All of that.
Welcome to the real training ground, boys. All right, put those down. Let me set this up. Okay, so Jesse did the first course on the nice flat grass in the front yard because we couldn't do it originally here. And so now he's doing his final fitness test. I'll try to do under 2 minutes, but of course the weights have increased a little bit, and then he's also going to try the mega 200-pound tire.
204 pounds.
204 pounds. And that will be the big test. But this will be good because you always have to test yourself.
Yes. This is like extreme endurance test here because there's thorns too.
Yeah, there's thorns, there's weeds here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, begin. Tire. Yep, just keep going, buddy. You're gonna get wet. Come on, you're good, man. How do you think this is gonna be easy? All right, that's good, dude. Oh man, farmer's walk. Go, Jesse, you're doing great, man. Okay, the 90-pound tire. Come on, man. You just hit a minute. Come on, man. You gotta have a big minute. Come on, let's go, brother. 40 seconds left. You gotta get this big 200-pounder. Come on. This is it. The final chapter, baby. Come on. It's all right. You gotta push now. Come on. How about 40, 35 seconds. Come on. Go, 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 go. Don't rest. Push it. Now push it. Push it with your whole body. Come on. You're just pushing with your upper body. Push with your legs. Come on. Come on, dude. 15 seconds. Come on. You got this. Graduation time. Push. Come on. Come on, dude. 10 seconds. 2 more flips. Go, 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 go. Push. Come on, dude. 1 more flip. Come on. You got 5 seconds. 3. Come on. 2. 1.
Hurts. Good job, dude.
All right, so I actually did not throw up this time. I'm very thankful for that. Thank you, William, for putting me through this. Appreciate it. And I feel so much better, but I did this to show that it is possible to change. You know, all of us have something in our lives that we wish would be different, and it's good. We should always be progressing. We should be on a journey, always improving and getting better in our relationships. If you're married, in your marriage, if you're a parent, then how you're raising your child, you should always be improving and getting better. And in order to get better, you have to change. You can't stay the same and be better at the same time. And so we can change if we choose to. And there are times in lives that we're forced to change, but we can change before we have to by making the choice to do it. So I hope that this process has encouraged you to change something in your life. And we're going to look at that today and over the next couple of weeks. So open up your Bibles and let's get ready. That was a lot of fun. Thanks to William Iron Ox Pruitt. Give him a hand for helping me out. I'd say it was fun, and I wanted to quit so many times, but 25 pounds was worth it. And the thing is the screens add about 10 pounds, right? So I like to tell myself that anyway. But it was funny because after I did that final test and did the 204-pound tire and pushed that over, don't get cheated out of those 4 pounds. After I did that, William, looking at me, said, "You know what? You're still fat. You need to lose another 10." And so I'm gonna try losing another 10 pounds or so and get rid of a little bit of that. So we'll see how that goes over the next few weeks, and hopefully I can do it. But some of you, you're fat, okay? And so you need somebody to just be honest with you and say that muffin top's got to go. And so listen up. Just lose some weight with me. Over the next few weeks, I'm going to be still working. I'm going to still be losing weight. And many of you in here, you've said, I should lose weight sometime. You know what? Get off your lazy behind and make it now. Choose to do it now. And the reason I'm talking to you like that is because that's how William talked to me, okay? And so I need to vent a little bit, okay? So that was a fun process. But I wanted to show you a before and after photo because many of you, it's hard to tell in the video. And so let's take a look at this before and after photo right there. So for those of you listening online or to the CD, I just showed a before picture of Jabba the Hutt and an after picture of a shirtless Hugh Jackman. And so everyone give it up for Hugh Jackman. Good job. See, the thing is I jokingly, before I started this process back in August, I would tell Angela that right now she's married to Jack Black, but when she's done, she'll be married to Hugh Jackman. And so that's the goal anyway. So that's a lot of fun. If you're taking notes, this is the big idea. I want all of us in here to walk away today with this one idea. If you don't remember anything else, remember this. If you're taking notes, write it down. You can change. As simple as that. You can change. How long has it been? How many times have you decided to change, wanted to change, and it hasn't happened? How many times have you put up with something going on, being the same in your life when you want it to be different? And for whatever reason, you've talked yourself out of being able to change. And so I want to give you permission, and I want to encourage you today that you can change. You do not have to be that person anymore. You can change who you are. And especially for those of us who have recognized the sovereignty, the greatness of God, we have His power in our lives to help us change. Whether it is something you go through emotionally, whether it's the type of person that you continually date, maybe it's the way that you handle your finances, where you pay off a little bit of debt and then you get right back in. Maybe it's where you get caught up on your bills, but then you start getting those yellow letters in the mail saying it's past due again. Whatever it is in your life that you've struggled with, you can change. Don't talk yourself out of it. Don't make excuses any longer. You have the potential to change. And like I said when we started, is imagine with me if that change was for the better. Imagine with me if that change was good. You can change. Now, the thing is for some reason, we talk ourselves out of it. We have this idea, we have this thought that we could have something different in life, and we talk ourselves out of it. And so if you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. Excuses make the possible look impossible. Excuses make the possible look impossible. Because for whatever reason in your life, you can change, and you talk yourself out of it. You use these excuses like, well, I've been divorced, so I can't change that. Or I never went to that college, so I can't change this. Or I'm married to that person, so I can't change this. Or I live in this place, or my parents grew up here, and so I grew up there, and so I can't change this. And we make excuses, and excuses take something that is possible. It is possible for you to change, but excuses convince you that it's impossible. Excuses will deceive you into thinking something is impossible. So what are the excuses that you're using? Because you can change. Cut the excuses. Don't use the excuses. If God's dealing with you about something to change in your life, cut the excuses. He knows that it's a lie anyway. You're just lying to yourself, and decide to change. And you can change. Your life could be different in the next couple of weeks. Your life could be different in the next few months. A year from now, you could look back and say, I'm not even the same person as I was back then. I'm not that person anymore. I'm not the person that lets people treat me like that. I'm not the person that does those things. I'm not the person that says those things. Some of y'all, you want to quit smoking. You've tried to quit smoking before. You can change. Some of you, you know that you need to change something in your life. You can change. You want to say, I'm not that person that sleeps around anymore. I'm not the person that lets somebody sweet talk me and get their way. I'm not that person anymore. In a few months, in next year, you could look back and you could say, I'm not that person. You can change. And some of you really need to be serious and look at that. Because there's something in your life that right now needs to change. You can. You can change. You can become a different person with God's help. All right, so change starts on the inside. Listen to what it says in Romans 12, verse 2. It says, don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God, say God, let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Change starts on the inside. If you never see yourself different, if you never can imagine you being a different person, if you can never imagine you living a life in a way that honors God, that pleases God, that represents godly principles, if you can never see yourself that way, if you can't start thinking that way, you're not going to change. Change starts on the inside. And then it goes on to say, then you will learn to know God's will for you. Some of you, you're going through life and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing here. There's some things in your life that you need to change. Let God change the way you think. Then you're going to start knowing your purpose. Then you're going to start knowing God's will for your life, which is good and pleasing and perfect. Your life could be better if you changed. If you allowed change to happen in your life, it could be better. I want to go over 3 ingredients for change. 3 ingredients for change, and we're going to close with these 3 points and maybe a couple more scriptures, and then, I don't know, we'll see where it goes. Okay, so 3 ingredients for change. If you're taking notes, write this down. You can change when. You can change when you refuse to accept what is. When you get fed up with whatever is, you can change. You can change when you decide that you're tired of what is, you get fed up with what is, and you refuse to accept it any longer. If you're not to that point, if you're still comfortable, if you're still just accepting whatever in your life, saying, I would rather be lazy and comfortable, I would rather just keep what I know, rather than trying something new, rather than branching out, rather than taking some risk or being daring, I'd rather just keep what I know. You're locking yourself out and you're cutting yourself off from the possibilities of life. And if you're just going to accept it, then you're not going to change. But you can change when you refuse to accept what is. And for some of you, it's time to get fed up right now. And maybe for some of you, there's something in your life that weeks ago, months ago, maybe a year ago, at some point in your life, you were fed up. You were fed up and it irritated you, it frustrated you, and rather than channeling that energy, that frustration, that possibly even a holy anger to do something different with your life, you pushed it to the side and just accepted it. It's time for you to get fed up again. It's time for you to say, no, I'm not going to live this way any longer. I'm not going to accept things how they are. I can change. I know I need to change, and I'm going to start doing it right now. The next point, if you're taking notes, you can change if you are willing to pay the price. You can change when you get tired of it, when you get fed up with it, when you're not going to accept it anymore, and you can change if you're willing to pay the price, because change isn't cheap. Change isn't cheap. Tell it to your neighbor. Change isn't cheap. Change isn't cheap. If you're going to change your life, it's going to cost you something. You're never going to be able to improve and increase without releasing something. For some of you, you want to improve your marriage. Those of you that are spouses, you want to have a better marriage. You want to change your marriage. Right now, you're just existing. You're like roommates. And you want to change that. You want a flourishing, thriving marriage where you're more enraptured in love now than you were when you got married. For some of you, you say, I've never had that. Even when I got married, that can change too. You want to change that? It's going to cost you something. You're going to have to stop doing some things that you're doing, give up some things that you probably like in order to work on your marriage. For some of you, it may mean stop going to the golf course. For some of you, it may mean stop going to get your nails done so that you have extra money to go on a date. But you're going to have to give up something. It's going to cost you something. You know, to be real, to really hit home, I'm going to put my fingers all in your chili here, because if you want to make your marriage better, you want to change your marriage, maybe you're going to have to give up pornography. Maybe you're going to have to give up flirting with somebody of the opposite sex. Maybe it's going to cost you something that you really like and it makes you feel good. It's going to cost you. But you can change if you're willing to pay the price. If you're willing to give something up and say, I'm not going to be spending my time, my energy, my resources doing that, and I'm going to pour it into something that matters. I'm going to pour it into a marriage that honors God. Maybe if you do that, maybe if you'd pay the price, you'd start seeing some rewards for it. Instead of blaming your spouse or blaming circumstances and coming up with all these excuses, maybe if you're willing to pay the price, maybe you could change your marriage or your finances or whatever it might be. But are you willing to pay the price? To achieve something, you must release something. Number 3, if you're taking notes, you can change by small increments. You can change by small increments. You know, so often we look at our lives, and for some of you, I'm saying, you have something in your life that you need to change. You know, I need to change all of it. I don't like any of this. That needs to change, that needs to change, that needs to change. All of it needs to change. I need extreme makeover where they plow it down and just build something new. You're like, I don't want to just repaint. I want to tear it all down, you know. Well, here's the thing, is it's easy for us to look at our lives and get overwhelmed with what we want to see changed. And when that happens, you're never going to start to change because you don't have enough steam to keep that up. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to say, I can change something today. I can change a little part. I can start making a good choice right now. And for some of you, you want to lose a few pounds. You know that you should be working out. But then you also know that you need to have a budget and start doing your finances differently. For some of you, you know that you need to start spending more time and working on your marriage. You know that you want to start a business, and so you need to change your schedule and start planning on how to open that business and the paperwork and the government stuff and the city ordinances and all that. And so you want to do all this stuff, and you want your life to be different, but you're overwhelmed with all of it. What you need to do, especially if you're married, is sit down, make a list of things, and say, what are we going to focus on right now? And start changing something a little bit at a time. You can change by small increments. You know what? If I had a container of change, coins, then every single day when I come home, if I pull out my change and I stick it in there, it might just be a couple quarters, it might just be a few pennies, it might be a couple nickels or dimes, and if I put it in there, over time, that small amount of change can add up to a big change. Angela and I, we did that a few years ago before we had kids, and now the kids get all the change, and I never see it again. But we had this jar, and we filled it up with change. All of her change, all of my change, we just always drop it in there. And so it was like full, and we're like, hey, let's go cash it in and just spend it on whatever, right? And so we go to the bank, and we're there in line, and we give it to the teller, and while they walk off and they dump it in their little magical machine that counts it, Angela and I are looking at each other, and we're a little competitive, and so I'm like, let's make a bet who can get closest to the amount of change, right? And so I said something like $78 or something like that. And Angela's like, 150 or something, right? It was almost $300 in this thing of change. Just this jar. Change, small amounts of change can add up to a big change. And you can change by small increments. What is it in your life right now? If forget all the big stuff, or forget everything that's overwhelming, and focus on one thing and say, where am I going to start? What change do I need to start right now? For some of you, maybe it's just a phone call with that person. Maybe it's just a conversation with somebody. Maybe it's just cutting out caffeine. Maybe it's just not watching so much television. Maybe it's just a small change, but you can change by small increments. And I know that you have what it takes. Don't talk yourself out of it. Don't convince yourself that you can't do it. You have what it takes. You can change. And I want to encourage you, because it does not matter how many times you've tried. It does not matter how many times you've told yourself you're going to change, how many times you've made a promise to yourself and then let yourself down by not changing. It doesn't matter how many times you threw that last package of cigarettes away and said, I'm never going to buy them again, and now you've got one out in your car right now. It doesn't matter how many times you've fallen flat on your face when it comes to change. I love what it says in Micah 7:8. It says, do not gloat over me, my enemies, for though I fall, I will arise again. And for some of you, you need to pick yourself up, stop wallowing in the sadness of life, and you need to decide that you're going to be different. You need to pick yourself up and say, I'm going to change. You need to rise up and say, today, this day, is the day that my life begins to change. And here's the thing, is that you're not going to change overnight, but you can start changing today. Things aren't going to be totally radically different tomorrow, but today you can choose to pick yourself up, to start the process of change, and you can do something right now to change your life. And that's what you're going to do. You're going to do what I chose to do 4 months ago. You're going to choose to change before you have to. You're not going to wait until circumstances force you to. Right now, the things that you know God's dealt with you about, you're going to start changing them now. You're going to say, I'm not going to be that spouse anymore. I'm not going to be that coworker anymore. I'm not going to be that employee or that employer anymore. I'm going to change. And you're going to decide to live a life that represents God, that shows Jesus to the people around you. And you're going to choose to be a different person than you've been in the past, because you have the Holy Spirit in you, and you have God's power in you, and you can change. And this is the year, this is the time that you're going to see yourself do it. And I know I'm preaching really good, and you need to start clapping right now, because you need to decide that it's not okay to stay the same. It's not okay to live another week like you've lived. This is the time that you need to change. And I'm telling you, you can change. Say that. You can change. Say, I can change. I can change. You have to believe it. You have to decide right now that you're going to be different, because if you don't convince yourself, if you don't agree with this, next year you're going to be sitting there saying, why is my life like this still? But you can choose to make something different. You can choose to be obedient to God, to follow His path for your life. Maybe you felt like your life is a wilderness. He wants to make a path through it. Maybe you felt like your life was this dry, barren place. Maybe you felt hopeless. God wants to change that. God wants to make rivers where there was a dry wasteland in your life. Don't give up hope. You can change. If you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. Time is not up. God is not done. There is hope. You can still become the person God created you to be. You can still become the person God created you to be. Don't give up on yourself. God hasn't given up on you. I haven't given up on you. There's people in your life that are rallying and cheering around you to see you become a different person. Are you going to make the stand to change? Because you can. You can change. Time is not up. God is not done. There is hope. You can still become the person God created you to be. Let's pray.